this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. Since spring 2014, Ukraine has been demonstrating unprecedented levels of resilience and persistence in achieving societal change, asserting its European orientation. Expectations regarding the EU remain high in the country. So what has Ukraine achieved in this period? And we're going to talk about the last year, about what has been done and what still needs to be done. To talk further about the transformations, we are joined in the studio today by Olga Stefanyshyna, Ukraine's Director of the Government Office for Coordination of European and Euro-Atlantic Integration. Olga, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you.
So we want to look back at this year, because it's always a great time at the end of the year, beginning of a new, to kind of have some perspective on what's being achieved when it comes to, let's talk about first, the association agreement.
Thank you for this question, and actually I've been answering it for quite a number of times for the last months, and actually my conclusion is that we've made such a huge transformational breakthrough over this year that now we just cannot be looking back only 1 year back. So we're looking to the perspective of the last 4 years when the association agreement was provisionally applied, then it entered into force, and now and on 17th of December, when Prime Minister was in Brussels to participate in the Association Council meeting, actually this was the huge transformation where Ukraine and EU just fixed out that we're transforming our relations from the partnership and cooperation format to the deeper economic and sectoral integration with the EU market. And it's like the grown-up relations between the parties. Before we were like one of the countries of Eastern Partnership, but when you're reading the association agreement, you understand that it is that ambitious, that it is not less ambitious upon the obligation and the scope what Ukraine has to do than it was for the candidate countries such as the Baltics, such as Poland, Hungary, and also as the Balkan countries, which are, some of them are members of the EU, but still some of them are to become a member. So the scope of the association agreement is not less ambitious than this one. So actually this was a very huge decision that we were taking, and we were moving to this decision for the past 4 years. It's just to remind that back in 2014, when the new government was appointed after the Revolution of Dignity, 5 years before that, everything which related to EU and NATO issues was just liquidated and eliminated. We woken up in the new government seeing that there is no institution, there is no people, there is no human resources, there is no knowledge and understanding, and there is no even counterpart in most of the ministries where you can just discuss and understand where you have to go. So
yeah, there was just a facade of this. There was no real action towards it. A lot of things came to light after the new government moved in.
Yes, absolutely.
And when we look at the association agreement, so what people mostly know, the average person, what they feel the most is, of course, the free trade agreement, where we see more goods from Europe here that are at lower prices and more variety, as well as Ukrainian goods moving towards the EU. And the other one that people really know, of course, is the visa-free regime. So what are some lesser-known achievements in the last 4 years that have really had a major impact on the daily life, perhaps, of Ukrainians and businesses?
Well, first of all, as you have already mentioned, is the export and export from Ukraine to EU and export from the EU to Ukraine. This is something that really boosted and supported Ukraine in a hard time when Russia started not only the military occupation but also a trade war against Ukraine. And back in 2014, who was the major trade partner of Ukraine? It was Russian Federation. And also, once we woke up and understood that this is not the case anymore, and most of our entrepreneurs they didn't have their average salary and incomes and assets they had, and here's where the association agreement started provisionally being applied, and the EU guaranteed additional autonomous trade preferences to Ukraine. And the dynamics is, I would say, a fantastic one, is that for this 4 years Ukraine has absolutely reversed its export, and now 46% of all export from Ukraine go to European Union. This is something which had never happened in Ukraine before. It means that the association agreement works and that Ukrainian business and Ukrainian small and medium enterprises, they are ready to reverse and adjust to European standards, to best practices. Because what we always say is that association agreement is very interesting for the legal business, for transparent business. And we see it not only as a huge potential for export and joining the biggest market in Europe, but we also see it as a very good booster for making things legal.
For this transparency is,
yes.
and it doesn't just come across to operations with the EU. It transfers back here in Ukraine, where businesses start to realize how important it is just in Ukraine to have this transparency.
Yeah, and just for example, back in 2016, in the beginning of 2016, we only had 200 plus companies exporting to the EU, and only for these 2 years we have the number of 700 plus companies exporting to the EU. Ukrainian companies. These are mostly small and medium enterprises and individual entrepreneurs. So this is a very good dynamics for us, and it's really puts from the other side a huge burden to the government, because we feel even more committed to eliminate all the barriers to trade for the goods and for the services between our parties, as we did once when we eliminated the barrier for the movement of persons by getting the visa free.
Now, but the association agreement has quite a few more amendments and requirements, and also things that opening up other areas. So, what are some of the other areas where Ukraine has made significant strides?
Well, the first and foremost, I would say, is that over this 4 years, we've completely transferred all the regulations related to energy. You know that we have never since 2014 been in trade with the Russian Federation on gas, and for these 4 years Ukraine also fully reoriented its energy market to the EU. We've adopted the new model of energy market, of electricity markets, and this really was done because we see no ability to reverse our orientation. We really want to work on a very transparent manner, on the transparent rules for pricing, for services for people, and this is something that really not only the practical result, but also a very existential, I would say, result. And also the other block is the company law and competition. Now I can be proud to say that over the last 2 years, all the legal framework for functioning of the companies and the rules for competition are based on EU legislation, starting from stock companies, limited liabilities companies, the anti-monopoly legislation, and a very high level of control over state subsidies to specific companies, which does not allow to go through untransparent competition and to get some additional privileges. So this is something which you cannot really feel in your daily life, but you can be sure that it is already transparent and based on European standards.
And unfortunately, there's not without criticism about Ukraine's rule. And for example, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister of European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Ivana Klimpoush-Synsatsi, said she's been kind of disappointed in the results. We have a quote from her: according to the results of 9 months in 2018, we can say that only half the tasks planned for 2018 have been fulfilled. So what's your assessment on this?
Yeah, of course, the estimation is far not perfect, and we're far not happy with the results, actually. And this is a very correct assessment because it's based on the unique methodology which was adopted by the government in 2017. So this is the right number, and we really executed only half of what we have been done. But if you will see upon the weight of what have been done, this is a huge transformation for the country. But still, even though we did so much and we made a huge link with the parliament in adoption of the specific legislation, we've appointed more than 200 public officials on the reform staff position in the ministries, but this institutional capacity remains very low. And it's also a matter of vested interests, because, as I've already said, the association agreement is for legal business and for transparent environment.
And it's very difficult with so many vested interests.
And sometimes, even if you have done your bureaucratic work and you have prepared the perfect decision, it's not a case for its adoption, and the progress is not there, because it is very scary for some vested interests to understand that the new rules to come and these people who have been in charge of specific sectors will not be able to control it. So this is like two major issues: the lacking of institutional capacity and lacking of transformative power, I would say, in the country to move this agenda forward.
So what can we expect then in 2019, in your opinion?
Actually, what we can we expect have already been fixed by Prime Minister and Federica Mogherini during their meeting in Brussels on 17th of December, and earlier by President Poroshenko and Jean-Claude Juncker during the meeting of 20th Jubilee Summit between Ukraine and EU. We've outlined the 4 priority sectors of economic integration and integration of Ukraine into the EU market. This is, as I already outlined, the gas and energy markets, where we do not have actually any other chance but to integrate into EU market, because our legal and institutional framework is already back in line with this regulation. The other block is the customs regulation, because when we compare the statistics that I've already just said, we understand that we're committed to eliminate these barriers for customs regulations, for customs declarations, and we have to establish the single transit procedure for all the goods moving from Ukraine to EU and from EU to Ukraine. So this is the priority number 2. And the third one is something that have been dictated to us from the Ukrainian market, is the IT market, digital single market. And Ukraine have been very proactive there. You know that we've adopted the legislation on mobile ID, on electronic identification. And this is something which have been done at the same time. It's been done in 28 member states. So we're moving ahead together, hand in hand. And this is something where we can not just participate in the market. This is the market where we can be a good contributors there. And the fourth priority, I would say the most ambitious one, because it is related to preserving the progress we received before Ukraine was granted the visa-free liberalization. You know that we've transformed more than 140 spheres of public policy, starting from migration, asylum, and transborder crime and cyber crimes. And this is something where we believe that we have to move in line with the EU regulations, and that's why we formed the new agenda for justice and home affairs. We presented it to the European Commission, and it was supported and adopted during the meeting of the Association Council in December. So these are the 4 priorities, which does not, of course, diminishes the other sectors of cooperation, but this is, well, the 4 sectors where we have the priority dialogue.
Well, and that's absolutely necessary of how to implement such a large requirement, so many requirements. It needs to be some step-by-steps and progress. So we look forward to having you back here to give us an update on how progress is being made in these and what needs to be done next.
Thank you very much. It would be a great pleasure, and I hope I would have many things to report on.
Thank you. And that was Olga Stefanyshyna, Director of the Government Office for Coordination of European and Euro-Atlantic Integration. Thank you for watching UATV, and stay tuned for more.